Hi, this is Dyslexi. Today we'll be talking a little bit more about the DCS UH1 Huey by Bell Simtech. This video is basically just me going into the free flight mode and screwing around for about a half hour. I've mentioned this in the past, but my basic idea with something like this in order to learn it is pretty much just jump right in. The Huey, unlike the Black Shark, is a little bit less to deal with. You have a much simpler avionics set. The weapon employment is vastly simpler, and the flight model is different. There's a lot of dynamics that come into play. There's all sorts of stuff that I'm really not qualified to talk about, so I'll kind of avoid it a bit. But you have interesting effects, like you have the tail rotor, the main rotors of course. Changing the collective causes the interaction between the two to change, which results in some nice little corrective measures you have to take with the rudder, for example. You have the nice dynamics of rotor system close to the ground effect, translational lift, and all these other fun things. When you combine all this together, it's interesting. It's a really unique experience to fly. My primary background for flight, though I have played Black Shark since its release on and off, my primary passion for flight, at least, is the Arma series. Anyone who hears that thinks, oh well, Arma's not a helo simulator, yada yada yada. And that's technically true. It's not a helo simulator. They've kind of taken that avenue with their Take on Helicopters product, and it's not an area I've really been interested in going, at least not in Arma, or the Arma engine. The DCS series offers a very different environment for that. I've touched on this in the last one. The low-level stuff is nowhere near as high fidelity as Arma, but that's not what it was designed for originally. I've heard something about some new terrain engine or something they're going to be integrating in the future. Another thing I'm not qualified to talk about, but I'm cautiously optimistic that that'll start solving some of the problems with it. While Arma is not a helo sim, it gets the fundamentals, like the basic principles, more or less correct. The primary difference to going from Arma to DCS, for be it Black Shark or the Huey module you see here, is just all the stuff that in Arma is kind of automated for you and streamlined, is unstreamlined in this. Arma will coordinate your collective and rudder usage, so we don't have the differences in rotation as you change your collective. The only time that isn't true is if you damage your tail rotor in the game, which kind of shows you that the simulation is basically there, it's just all on autopilot for you. The main thing that Arma doesn't have that drastically influences how you fly is the vortex ring concept. For any of you that are just from Arma and well, that sounds very condescending. For any of you who play Arma but aren't familiar with full fidelity flight sims, vortex ring state is basically this idea where you're more or less stationary and you're descending down too fast, and you kind of start sucking up your own air. So you pretty much fall out of the sky, and this happens very quickly and it's dramatic. If you don't correct it, you're dead. Pretty much. The way to correct it, in some light cases, is to crank up the collective and put a bunch of extra power in. You can power out of it sometimes, apparently. That's something I find very tense, so I don't typically do that. The traditional way to do it is that as you're descending this column of recycled air, I guess you'd say, you just get the helicopter to go in any direction out of that column. This can be forward, left, right, back, whatever, it doesn't matter. Once you do that, you break this horrible cycle that's sucking you down, and you resume normal flight again. This vortex ring state, from my perspective, having just flown around in this, as you see here, for quite a while, and tried out different things from Arma, vortex ring is the thing that really matters. Everything else, learning to hover, the torque effects, and changing collective and all that, it's the same idea. It's just more difficult. It takes more attention. But you can achieve the same effects for the most part, except for vortex ring. And you'll see this happen to me several times in the video, where I'll get into that state, sometimes doing something that I'm used to doing in Arma that just doesn't work in this. One pretty prime example of that is I'll do this, I don't remember where exactly in the video this happens, you might notice when you see it, but the basic idea is that in Arma I'll do this kind of spinning, slidey turn thingy to kill speed, and that works in DCS, it works in helos for real. The problem is that my way to finish that maneuver basically involves me being stationary in the air, with my rotor more or less pointing towards the ground, and descending. So this is vortex ring state. It's like prime habitat. So 9 times out of 10 when I VRS in this, it's because of that. But that's a known. You can fairly reasonably predict when that's going to happen. And you can start to adapt your tactics to compensate for that. What I'm doing here by just flying around is I'm basically testing the limits. I'm seeing if the kind of stuff I can do in ARM or the kind of low-level flight, if that's practical and if that can actually be done in a Huey. I know it can more or less be done in a Black Shark. I never released any videos like that I recall. But I wanted to see it in a Huey as well. It's a more traditional, closer to ARMA style, or closer to the stuff that I fly in ARMA than the KA-50 with its coaxial rotors and the kind of lack of having to worry about the tail rotor concept. I guess it's fairly important to note that at this point of flying, I hadn't read the manual, and I hadn't done any of the in-game training. I've read various helo books in the past, Chicken Hawk being a great example. Another one that I absolutely love is Low Level Hell. It's about a Loach pilot in the Vietnam War, whereas Chicken Hawk is about a Huey pilot. There's a bunch of other ones, I don't recall them all offhand, but they would talk about different concepts and give like neat little anecdotes about flying. So I knew some ideas, and from reading stuff about helicopters in the past, I knew that when descending, as you see here as I'm going for this landing pad, that things happen, things change very rapidly. I don't know what aspects of this are bugs. I like to pretend that there aren't any bugs, because it seems interesting, I hope they're not bugs. I hope this is actually how it behaves, because it's really, something you have to learn. It's exciting. And after reading the manual and reading some of the training material, I realized that this stuff actually, it is legitimate. So this stuff like when coming down for a landing, there's a period, and I'm not using any technical terms here, so people who are big helo guys are going to just be tearing their hair out at this. But there's a moment where, at least for the Huey, you'll suddenly, if you're keeping your collective and your cyclic in basically the same position, doing a nice steady descent down, there's a moment where it'll just suddenly lurch and just drop down as your lift dynamics change based on, I guess, your speed and your altitude. And it's cool to see this happen. It's really neat to have to know that when you get to this certain threshold, suddenly you have to kick the rudder differently, and you have to pull collective, and you have to do this, that, and the other. And you're so close to the ground that this is extremely important. If you don't do that in timely fashion, of course, you're going to die. And that's neat to me. Virtually, it's neat. Obviously, you would not fly like this in reality if you were just learning the system, because you will probably die. I had the good fortune of flying this for, like I said, about a half hour, and not running that particular issue, but there have been other times where it's gone pear-shaped pretty quick. I mentioned this in my prior video. We have, DCS has the issue where I assumed in the past that the trees were collidable. And I assumed that, or actually I had heard someone say that the Combined Arms add-on had changes. This. Unfortunately, as it turns out, that's not the case. The trees have never been collidable in this engine. Boo-hoo, that sucks. But, the AI will see through and shoot through them like they're not even there. But whatever, treat them like they are. It makes it so much more fun. You can fly through a forest if you want. But that's pretty cheese-dicky, and you can't really look at yourself in the mirror after that. I don't know about the new terrain stuff. I've heard EDGE mentioned as the acronym for it, I guess. I literally know nothing about it. But I desperately hope that we'll see features like that, and we'll see more terrains, because, this series has been out for years and years. I played Black Shark. God, that was ages ago, and we're still in basically the same terrain. It needs more. It deserves more. I like this area. It's a nice area and everything, but for as little as I've played it over the years, it's already old to me. I can't imagine the people who are having to sit around and play this year in and year out, and they're always in this same damn terrain. So hopefully we get some new stuff coming up. I know there's a Nevada terrain being talked around at one point. I have no idea what happened to that either. You might get the impression from this that I'm not really up to date on DCS. I just kind of hop in and have some fun with a new module, and then like, hey, that was cool. It's a nice product. I'm happy this is still improving. And then kind of move on back to ARMA or whatever flavor of the month title I have. But I want to see this improve. I want to see the future of this. Let's be honest here. What I really want, so desperately, is to see either, and see if you can guess this in advance. I want to see the following aircraft. Pick 3. We'll see if you get it. The Kiowa, the Loach, and the Little Bird. I would literally pay hundreds of dollars to have those in this. I would love to see how those fly. I know the Kiowa's in development. The Little Bird, who knows? The Loach, hey, come on, it's Vietnam era, right? Yeah? It can't be that hard. Can't have that many complex systems. I don't know. If not that, I would also love to see the Cobra, which seems reasonable since the Cobra and the Huey share such parts commonality. I'd love to see that. I'd also love to see the Apache, but I don't know. I heard that once upon a time. I haven't heard it since. I guess they're doing the F-18 next, which is a jet. And let me tell you how uninterested I am in jet combat. It doesn't do anything for me. I see people doing it and enjoying it. There's plenty of nice little YouTubers out there doing cool stuff in BMS and A10 and what is the other one? And what, Flaming Cliffs? I mean, it seems it seems neat, I guess. Just doesn't do it. The challenge for that, I guess you could say, is that it's the avionics and the weapon employment, the complex aspect of it, and I guess radar management and stuff. I'm not a big jet guy. Whereas helicopters, which is my passion, the complexity of it, or the appeal of it for me, is that you're flying something that, if it has a moment to its own, if it can just get you off the controls for a second, man, it is going to crash. It's going to do everything in its power to crash. It would just love to crash. And the entire time you're flying it, you're like, nope, can't do that, nope, can't crash, not letting you crash. And all you have to do is basically survive the ride. And I think that's cool. On top of that, depending on what aircraft you're flying, you also get to kill things like the Ka-50, tanks, and other, enemy stuff. And the Huey, you can presumably transport troops. I haven't done it yet, but it's on my to-do. You have an amazing minigun mount, which is like the bee's knees, and I had, like I said last time, I had no idea how incredibly fun that is to use, or how flexible it is. I didn't even really show it in the video, but it pans like all the way, it pans so far, I read this in the manual, which was a cool fact, it can pan so far to the left and right that the opposite side's gun has to stop firing, and the near side gun increases its firing rate to compensate. And it can pan all the way up, well not all the way up, but it can pan a fair amount up and quite a bit down. It's really amazing. Seeing a simulation of something like that. If you put that system into, let's say, Arma, and you said, oh, this is based on a real system, blah blah blah, and we had to take your word for it, and we didn't have familiarity with it from something like this, I would see that and think, wow, this is kind of ridiculous. I don't know if this is legitimate. This seems a little crazy overpowered. I mean, could it possibly work like this in reality? Well, according to DCS, or according to Bell Simtech, I guess you could say, yeah, yeah, it can, and it's pretty goddamn amazing. So, at some point during this video, like 14, 15 minutes into it, I believe, I do this attempted descent. I'm basically just start practicing landings. So I want to see how quickly I can get down, and how I have to adapt to land without vortex ringing myself to death, which is the typical dyslexia was pronounced dead because of a vortex ring state kind of outcome in these things. And you'll see that I do this fairly hard landing, and as I settle to the ground, I do not settle evenly. This was really cool to see, because what had basically happened is I'd collapsed one of the skids. So I didn't destroy the aircraft. I mean, we probably had a nice little jolt when that happened, but I completely crumpled or tore off or did something horrific, and the skid is no longer attached to the aircraft. Now, in keeping with the practice style of basically keep flying until, either you're done, which who knows how long that'll take, or you're dead, which can happen much more rapidly, I decided, like, what the hell, let's go with it. Let's see how this changes things. So I just kept flying. And what I was trying was when I'd land, I'd land and balance on the right skid and see how that worked out. Now, the one thing that changed is that I couldn't do sliding landings. Or I assumed I couldn't do sliding landings. I figured if I did that, the friction on the fact that the helicopter would settle on its left side would cause me to do some kind of crazy little spin out and it'd be this horrifically embarrassing way to die. So I avoided that and just kept flying with the intent of balancing on the right skid. And it ended up being really fun. I don't know how much else damage-wise you can do the aircraft and still get a controllable airframe, but collapsing a skid, good times. One of the things that I hear said a lot, and I see this in video comments, and you'll see this in the Arma forum, is this magical happy dream where you can take the kind of fidelity you see in the Huey mod or Black Shark. I don't want to call it a mod. The Huey add-on. I don't know. I guess add-ons at least are the most accurate word to use for it. But the kind of fidelity you see in this, or Black Shark, or A10C, they want to take that and they're like, oh, what if we took this full-on simulation and applied it to Arma? What if we took Arma and DCS and merged them together? Wouldn't that be awesome? And it's like, yeah, on a really superficial level, that'd be pretty amazing. It sounds great. It sounds so convincing and compelling. It's like, oh man, it's just like the ultimate military simulator. But I don't think that's what would happen. If you've played A10 or you've played Black Shark, I mean, these okay, let's use the Black Shark as an example. You're driving around a little armor column in DCS Arma, or whatever you want to call it. You're going along, you're part of this big offensive, you got, let's go full on crazy ass. You know, this is fulfilling all your dreams of Arma and all your dreams of DCS. So you got like this tank battalion rolling across the Volga Gap or whatever. You're going along and all of a sudden, you just explode. And then someone else explodes. And then the armor's all getting just fucked up. And no one knows where it's coming from. Oh, and then you realize you're being attacked by helicopters, so what do? You try and drive away. But you know what? There's nowhere you can go, there's nowhere you can hide. They're helicopters, man. They're full-on simulation level helicopters. What if you're being attacked by Apaches? What are you going to do as a tank? You're going to fucking die. That's your tactic. That's your options, to die. You know, like take something conceptually like, if you've ever played Wargame European Escalation, yes, it's an RTS, oh, someone's going to debate that, but it's a Cold War era kind of game where you have that really vast scale, and you have just tons and tons of units, and you find in that, for example, like in the Shakhtar context, we have an infantry company. Our little infantry company, in the scale of an actual real-world battle, not a small-scale action, but an actual, this is World War III gone hot, an infantry platoon. What's the survival rate of that? It's nothing. Armored units, man, the amount of stuff that's out there on the battlefield in modern war, or even Cold War era stuff, they can just annihilate in gigantic quantities and just murder huge numbers of people in no time flat. It's everywhere, man. I mean, that's what war is going towards. That's kind of the point. Is you make the most efficient machines. You have an Apache flying around with 16 Hellfires, 16 tanks it killed, and then it flies back to base. And that's just one Apache. God only knows how many of them are flying around. And you have A-10s coming in and just pummeling the crap out of everything. You have anti-air missiles blowing the shit out of planes. I mean, it's such a highly lethal battlefield. I just can't imagine how you could do that. How you could have full-on simulation fidelity. The total wet dream kind of scenario where we have like thousands of players in a scenario, and really make it compelling. I think at some point you get to where you realize that in a gaming context, it's like, huh, war kind of sucks. You know, this is horrible. We just marched for X many hours to get to this location. We got in a fight, and we got an entire giant-ass Russian artillery battery just blew the shit out of everyone. And there's just pieces of things everywhere. Huh, well, that was fun. Or you're driving like a convoy or something, and oh, you get attacked from the air. Or you're driving anything, or you're being any person on the battlefield, and you're being attacked by attack aircraft, artillery, enemy tanks, enemy ATGMs, whatever. I don't see that as being compelling. I think you have to get in kind of the I don't want to say fantasy, but you have to really tailor the situation. I don't think you can make a compelling, large-scale wargaming experience where everything is full-on simulation. And certainly not at some crazy high scale. I don't think that would work. And I think the people who want that, I don't know if they'd enjoy the outcome. I don't think I would. But that's taking it to the extreme. That's taking it way, way down fantasy land, fantasy lane. And if that ever happens, that'll be long in the future. Whether any of us will see it is, maybe if you're really young right now and watching this, but I don't think I'll see that. So the other thing, ignoring that, getting back down to a technical limitation. How long did it take to make DCS? Any given module in DCS, let's say. The A10? I mean, that was years. The KA50, I assume it was years. It had to be years. This Huey? I'm sure that took a considerable period of time as well. Let's look at Arma's vehicle set. I mean, I don't have any numbers off the top of my head, but it's many times more than this. Let's look at like something like Steel Beast. How many vehicles does Steel Beast have? I'm sure it's a considerable number, but how many of them are fully simulated? It's not that many, last I checked. So you want to have all helicopters to DCS level fidelity. You want to have all jets to the same. You want to see all armor to that. The amount of manpower you're talking about having for that, it doesn't exist. And I don't mean there aren't enough people in the world to do it. I mean there is no financially viable way to get that many people onto this kind of project and have it released in any kind of time frame that matters to us. And maybe that's a defeatist way of looking at it, but that's how I feel about it. Having seen how long it's taken for Armor to evolve, or watching VBS evolve, or watching Steel Beast, or DCS, any of these products, they all focus on their aspect, and they make compromises to be able to achieve their goals. The idea that you can just do everything to be a jack of all trades and master all of them seems outrageously optimistic. It's such a pie-in-the-sky wish that it almost doesn't really deserve serious consideration. It's so far out of our ability to do in this day and age that it's a non-factor. It's a non-starter. And those are kind of like the time-related reasons why I don't find that a very appealing concept. We are talking about kind of the higher level war reasons for why it wouldn't be like the greatest thing ever. But if we take this to the Arma scope, let's say, and we restrict this strictly to helicopters, it'd be nice to have full on the typical thing is to take on helicopters, flight model. Oh my god, if we added that, that would change everything. It'd be the most amazing thing ever. Oh my god, everything that has helicopters in it would just be so more authentic and realistic, and thus the gameplay experience would improve. I completely disagree with that. The very reason I love Arma's helos is not because I'm like God incarnate with them, which I modestly must say I sometimes feel like, but it's because it's accessible. It was accessible to me. That's what got me into it, was Flashpoint. I played Flashpoint in 2001, when it came out, like right before I joined the military. I played Flashpoint. It's like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is far more than I've ever seen before. And the flight model then was laughable. I don't know. If you go back and try it, you get Cold War Assault, or what they renamed it, and you try flying that, it is amazing. It's hilarious. It's the worst thing ever. But it was accessible. It hooked me. I still have videos from years ago, like 2003, 2004, in Lejeune, just flying around in a Little Bird, the Bass Little Birds, which, like, thank you so much for making those. That's ignited my passion. I was flying around in those, and oh my god, this is so cool. I was obviously not qualified to be an actual helo pilot. I wasn't qualified for that. I played Apache Havoc, and I liked it, but it was missing something. And it was missing something that Flashpoint gave, which was you had the helicopters flying around in this really lush, at the time, detailed environment, interacting with infantry. They were in their truest role. They were supporting the infantry. And that support could come in many forms. The support could be you're flying in supplies for them. You're blowing the crap out of whatever's trying to attack them. You're transporting them. But it was all done within that believable realm of, here I am, I'm a helo flying through the battle space, and there's dudes. They're there. If I hover this tree line, there could be someone inside who could shoot me down. Like that accessibility was so key to my personal evolution as a gamer in general, but as an Arma player more specifically. If that first day I had sat down and through magic there had been a full fidelity flight sim engine as the way that things were, I probably would have stopped there. I wouldn't have stopped with the game, but I don't think I would have looked at that and been like, oh, I should totally master this. This would be so great. Because it would have introduced the necessity to have a throttle and a joystick and rudder pedals all the time. And that's not as appealing to me. That's why I don't play DCS as much as I play Arma. That's part of it. There are many reasons, but that's part of it. So Arma does this abstraction of flight. It takes the principles and retains them. You can't descend too fast. You can't just recklessly throw your helo around. You can do neat maneuvers. Your helo has inertia. The trim stuff is handled for you. The collective and the rudder and all those interactions are kind of automatically handled for you. But it gets all the fundamentals right. And as far as gameplay is concerned, because you're working in this infantry environment, having that kind of abstraction and the ability to control it with mouse and keyboard or joystick or gamepad or whatever you want. It's such a driver of the accessibility. And that accessibility is what allows other people to hop into the game, hop into a helo, take off, and start to experience that joy of flight. It's what allows someone to not have to dedicate inordinate amounts of their time to learning how to fly a full-on simulation helo, but get in there and get the core aspects right and have a hell of a good time doing it. I find that so essential. So when someone scoffs, it's like someone asked in a comment, it was like, hey, Dyslexi, what do you think of, how do the Arma helos compare to this? Or how does this compare to the Arma helos? I forget what the way they phrase it. And someone was like, the fact that you're even asking this question, It's like, what? Come on. It's not like it's completely different. It's the same idea. It has a collective, it has a rudder. It works by these basic principles of motion. Yeah, I don't have to sit there and dance on the friggin' rudder and like strong arm the cyclic and set trim and stuff. Or change collective and blah 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 and do all the little micromanaging, finicky, simulation-y aspects like this. That doesn't like make it fairy tale land. I think that the same basic concept applies to the infantry. You don't have to sit there and micro your sights while you're shooting. You have to adjust for elevation, and in some mods like Ace, you have to adjust for the wind. You have to do like a Shift R to unjam your weapon. But that's it, man. That's not, would you call it like hardcore simulation? I don't know if I would. I would call it intelligent simulation. I would call it like not sweating the small stuff, I guess. It's authentic. Authenticity is what makes for the compelling experience to me. It's not a slavish adherence to the minutiae of how something works. It's getting the broad strokes right, and then maybe refining the interesting ones a little bit more to flesh out the experience and make it that much nicer. So for me, that's basically the difference between Black Shark, Huey, DCS stuff, and Arma helos. It's simulation minutia on one corner, or one end, versus authenticity and gameplay. And personally, I would far rather have a group where we have dozens of people that are able to become, good enough helo pilots, versus having this hardcore pat yourself on the back because you managed to land or take off kind of simulation and only have a handful of people that can fly. Flight is so incredible. So, I guess to wrap this up, what all have we covered here? I got a little rambly. I haven't done this kind of thing before, so if you like it, let me know. If you don't, let me know. Okay, so what I was saying, my practice style is fly around until I blow myself up, break something or whatever, can't continue. Push it to the limit. Yeah. So that's what I was doing here. I was just feeling it out and seeing. This is my second day of flying in this. And it's been a while since I flew in Black Shark, so let's say that doesn't count, right? Oh, it's the first time I've flown a helo like this with a tail rotor for any considerable time since, I guess since Apache Havoc. Have I played anything? I don't think I've played anything since then that I can remember. So yeah. Okay, so the difference between ARM and DCS, we covered that. The magical happy fairy tale land where we can just merge these products together and everything just is hunky-dory. I don't think that's going to happen. Or not the way we envision it. And as to the DCS Huey module in general, I like it. It's right up my alley. It's cool. I want to get some multiplayer in on it. I want to play some of like the campaign. I don't know what all's in there. All I've done is instant actions. I think it's cool. I know people have been complaining about it's a $50 prize for a beta and it's just one helicopter. But you know what? I can't relate to that. It's like, it's a product. Is it worth that to you? It's worth that to me. That's why I bought it, right? If it's worth it to you, get it. If not, don't get it. I think $50 is reasonable for a robust simulation of an aircraft that's put into a modular system like this. I think it's really cool. Anyway, that's just, one last thing. I did some slight tweaking to my track IR for this. So I'm probably going to use the same new settings in Arma. Basically what I did was reduce the smoothing down. And for this game, I use a different profile that has a flat response curve. So you kind of see like it's a little bit more, I don't know, I didn't really notice myself, but it's probably a little bit more jittery, but it's a hell of a lot more responsive for the purposes of this, for me like looking around and doing that sort of thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how it works in Arma. I haven't actually launched Arma since I've been playing this. And tomorrow will be our pre-FNG session, so I guess I'll see it then. Anyhow, This is my first half-hour commentary. I do not know if it's any good. I probably ramble. I probably offended someone, but I didn't mean it that way. I hope you enjoyed. I hope to deliver some more footage of this in the future. I want to try and make something interesting and meaningful and not just, hey guys, watch me play this mission and, you know, like X many other people have done. I don't like that. I try to avoid that. So if I can think of interesting things to show, or you have requests or whatever, be happy to do it. I am not a professional pilot. I'm not a trained pilot. I'm an ARMA pilot, for what that's worth. And I'm not super savvy on the technical terms and stuff. So like I said earlier, if that bothers you, man, holy crap, are you not going to enjoy my videos? But for those of you that can look past that, I'll see you in the future. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.